At this time, we would like to shine the November Superior Spotlight on North Forsyth Middle School. Principal Todd McClellan and your team, the floor is yours, and I'll bring the mic back over here to you.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Bearden. First off, I want to start with two thank yous. The first thank you is that I appreciate the opportunity to come to present to the board, and I think it's awesome that the board wants to know what's going on in schools and has a good idea of seeing the very best of the schools. And second of all, I want to thank the board members because I have worked in 3 different states and 5 different school systems, and I have worked in some school systems where the board was quite dysfunctional in my own personal opinion. I appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate why you do the work. I think it's for all the right reasons. Tonight we're going to talk about some classes that we have at North Forsyth Middle School, and one of the reasons why we have these classes is because with growth we have to figure out connections classes for our students. And one of the ways that we do this is we get input from our PTSO board, we get input from our LSC, and we talk about the things that, the skills that kids need out there beyond the core academics. And some of the comments that kind of ring true, going back to those LSC meetings when I was talking to parents about what skills do you need kids to know. They, for example, told them, if you go out on a business meal, don't eat a full rack of ribs, okay? They also said if you don't order the most expensive thing on the menu. If you're in a job interview, don't call the person that's interviewing you dude. Call him sir or call her ma'am or call them by their last name and Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. So those are some things that they as business owners were telling us that we needed. So my job was then to try to pair what our LSC was telling us and our PTSO board was telling us with the right people. And we found those right people in our building. So first of all, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dave Stevenson to talk about our careers in finance class. And from there, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. J.J. Pineda for a Wildcat Wellness class that we teach for some, once again, identified by our PTSO and our LSC. So Mr. Dave Stevenson.
Thank you. Dr. Bearden, Board of Education, I'd like to thank you for just a couple of minutes here just to talk to you about what I do at North. I always say I get to teach what I think is just one of the greatest classes ever. We do a really good job in the school district of educating kids with math and science and reading. But when they go out into the real world, we've figured out that they were lacking just some job skills and interviewing skills and finance skills. And so one of the things that we talk about, for example, with 8th graders, at 14 in the state of Georgia, they can legally go to work. So right now with my 8th graders, I'm working with them on how do you fill out job applications. You know, today we filled out a mock Chick-fil-A application. What are references? Why do you not use mom as a reference? You know, those types of things. What types of questions will they ask a 14-year-old in a job interview compared to what they might ask an adult? So trying to get these kids more comfortable to get ready to go out, make some money, make some spending money so they're not on your payroll all their lives, and just work on the people skills. And then also with 6th and 7th graders, we start talking a little bit about money. And we talk about what's the difference between a debit card and a credit card. And how's credit different? And when you put things on a credit card, why do you want to pay that off every month when you get your bill? And what is interest? How do credit card companies stay in business with interest? And just all of these skills that I kind of learned along the way, probably by making mistakes, that we don't want our kids to learn that way. And most of them find it, I think, very interesting because unless their parents talk to them about money and about job skills, not too many other people do. And so how do you write a check? You can see the picture of a check there. And I tell the kids, the majority of the time, they're probably not going to write many checks in life. They're going to be using their debit card. They're going to be paying cash. But what about those few times that they do need to fill out a check? So before they get off to college and have to fill out that first check and they realize nobody ever taught them, we go through a couple of, just lessons on how do you write checks and so forth. So credit card scammers. This is a biggie right now. And so teaching kids, and I try to tell them, when you pull up to the gas station with mom and dad, hop out of the car. Tell mom, oh, mom, wait a minute. And, mom, let me check for a credit card scammer. I said, I hope you never find one. But if you do, you want to make sure that somebody's not trying to steal mom and dad's credit card information from you. So it's just all these life skills that you and I have probably learned along the way that we're trying to hit tried to teach kids at an early age. So.
When you talk about the debit credit, I was going to ask if you talked about the skimmers, and that was your next grade?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, and again, it's like Mr. McClellan said, it's just life skills that I think we all would appreciate our kids knowing and just being able to protect them, and as they go to work, being able to protect their money. So.
I think this is great. We hear a lot from people about what should be in the schools, and this is, talking about finances, and especially starting at 8th grade, going into high school. I know with my son, I remember we were at the beach one time, and we had pulled up to the ATM, and we drove off, and he's like, wait, you can just pull up to that machine and money comes out? And I was like, well, no, it doesn't really work like that, and that's what started our conversation, but you still have to have these conversations all the time because, the debit and the credit card is the difference. So you doing this at 8th grade is really nice to see. So thank you.
This is making it a lot easier for them in the real world, I think. This is great.
That's great.
And so this is a connections class?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it new this year, or have you used it? How long have you been doing?
4
Okay.
4 years, I believe.
And is there a lot of interest in this? Because I know different connections classes fill up, right? So
They-
what is kind of the level?
They do, and I don't see 100% of the students because if a student is in band or chorus, sometimes that takes up both of their connections. I would guess maybe I see 80% of the students. And what I teach at 6th grade is a little different than what I teach at 7th grade and what I teach at 8th grade. So hopefully I get to see them at least a year or two. Some students I will see for 3 years, which is really nice because then they get the full program that I've developed. So it's like I
And
said.
some
I
of this
feel
goes
very-
along with junior achievement,
so-
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
does this go to, out of this class is when you take your field trips?
Yes, ma'am. It started off with junior achievement, and then the junior achievement part kind of shifted over to the social studies classes. And so I don't get to go, unfortunately, I don't get to go on the junior achievement field trips anymore because those were really nice. But the junior achievement part is still taught through social studies, and I kind of piggyback on what they're teaching there.
And are all connections kind of done this way, that you would get input from the PTSO board and the LSC if you want to have new connections classes in your school?
I would be more of a question for Mr. McClellan.
Yes, because it is, to me, one of the principles, it's one of the most important things that you do is develop your program. And I think maybe what North Middle needs might be different than what South Middle needs, might be different than Vickery Creek Middle School needs. And so with the vertical articulation too, since I've been there, we've been able to add 3 connections classes simply because of growth. And the other class that we added is agricultural science, but that was based on that strong vertical articulation with North Forsyth High School. And our sounding board for that, we talked about our North United. We have a team of business owners, and we actually just met yesterday. Parents, every school is represented, and so we do get an idea like what do we need what does North Middle need, and we the principals talk with a lot of but there's also a lot of direct input from the community.
Thank you.
And then align and fill in when you go to North High, whether you go to North High, but you still help align with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Dr. Bearden. Thank you for having us. My name is JJ Pineda, and I have to thank Mr. McClellan as well. He took a risk on bringing me into the middle school system. I was an elementary teacher for 20 years, and he also took a chance on this class. So kind of how Dave is, and I want to say to Dave that one of my 7th graders at the end of class today was leaving, and there were some boys. They were being silly. Very end of the day, and she looks at me, she goes, I'm more mature than they are because I have Mr. Stevenson's class. And I just thought it was very funny, So, but it is true. So Dave kind of approaches the old school, the business sort of things that we need to handle and teach the kids. My role is to work on the other part, which is the mental health and the wellness for the kids. And just to back up for a second, when I brought this idea to my administrators, I was in the 6th grade hallway. I was doing advanced ELA, I was doing social studies, and I just felt as though there was this lack. There was this space that was missing in our school where the kids could come and they could really just let go for a second and have a moment in their day, because they don't. It's just nonstop, as we all know. And so I just felt like I needed to build a curriculum around needing this space and figuring out ways for them to deal with the stress and deal with the pressure and cope with their lives. And there was so much that was brought to my attention just in the conversations with these kids Do you want to talk about restaurant tipping?
did not talk about tipping, I'm sorry.
My son had him, he tips very well. All right, job interviews, Dave?
Go ahead, you're good.
Okay. So in any case, I brought this idea to my administrators when this came about 4 years ago, and I just said, I really feel like I want to do something different, and there was a space open for us in the connections department. And so I took my training in yoga, which I'd certified years ago, and then just sort of life experience, and I did some training with meditation and breathing techniques, and I just put it all together, sort of around the health standards a little bit. And there's not really like a framework for my class. So we call it Skills for Adolescents. The kids call it yoga class. And as you look, there are some things that we teach. It's really, I think the biggest part for me is them problem solving and improving their relationships with their kids. And I'll tell you that I benefit from this every day too, because the things that they open up about, they come in and they know now this is a safe space. Every class that I have is kind of like a family atmosphere. And we build trust with each other, and they really need to talk sometimes. So this provides them with that space. So I'm not going to talk so much to the slide. I'll just tell you a little bit about the class. It's based on 3 things. So I have it set up sort of like a yoga studio as best as I can. We've got dim lighting and salt lamps. PTSO has been great. And the kids come in, and we do 3 basic things every day. We start off kind of just discussing the day, and then they lie down and they close their eyes, and we have sort of guided instruction on how to slow down, take a breath, and they focus each day on some different part of just being still, which for a lot of them, as you know, with their phones and all the distractions, it's difficult. So that's the first part of the class. The second part of the class is movement. And so I bring a lot of yoga in. I had a friend come in and do kickboxing the other day. And it just builds some like empowerment in them. You know, these little kids, these 6th graders were just ready to go. And it was so cool. The next day they're like, when's Miss Jen coming back? And I was like, well, she has a job. But, you know, and so I bring community people in who can share something. So there's the mindfulness in thinking and paying attention to our thoughts and processing. There's the movement piece. And then there's also the part about dealing with all the team pressures and the things that are going on in their lives. And so we'll talk about things that come up in school as things occur. We'll also talk about, we've used the DBT therapy as a guideline before, so we use this dialectical behavioral therapy to talk about dealing with their anxiety, dealing with social problems that they're having, dealing with parents, all these sorts of things that they need some help with. So we'll talk about those. So there's a lot of social emotional education as well. Like today we talked about discernment in class and what that word means and how you have to take a good thing and a bad thing and, you know, look at your choices and how things are going. Like if you have a choice to make, what would be the worst outcome and what would be the best outcome? And teaching them to kind of pause, to think, not be so impulsive. So it's day to day. But anyways, I appreciate you letting me share with you. Thank you.
I think you bring up a good point. When kids are in elementary school, every day they have PE, or they more so they have recess, and they get out and they get the wiggles out. When you get into middle school, there isn't a recess, and they have their classes all day long, and they have their lunch, and it's short, and they don't have any time to socialize, and they don't get any break. So, and socially, mature-wise, middle school, they're trying to figure out who they are. They don't know who they are. They go from being with the same kids every day, all day in elementary school, till they're passing classes, and they're not with the same kids, and they don't know who they're going to be and what they might be in band, or they just don't have that same social group, so they're trying to figure out who they are. So having a stress relief or a moment like this where they can kind of just take a break is kind of a nice thing, that they just something middle school is not an opportunity they usually have, and
They
it's
don't talk, you know, they talk to me about how they
need a
have to
break.
switch gears so often, especially on the days when we have all of the classes. And then on the longer days, then it's, you know, I have to really sit for an hour and 45 minutes 4 times a day and pay attention. I know for a faculty meeting, 20 minutes and I'm checking my phone, you know?
Yeah.
And so it has been nice to be able to, the joke with the kids is that they lie down and get graded on doing nothing. But it's harder than it seems. And so they're really embracing it. The cool thing that I think this year is probably, it's been my 3rd year doing this, and the best thing that I've heard is when kids come in and they're like, you know, I pulled a muscle last night at practice. Can we do something with hamstrings? And then we do the yoga that's based on something so they're connecting with it. And the other thing too is when the kids run in, they're like, oh, I've been waiting for this all day, you know, and they really are finding the value. It's blown me away this year. They've just really taken it. I think I have a better understanding because I've learned from them what works and what doesn't. So, but yeah, that's exactly right.
So after doing this for several years, is there any kind of connection that you're seeing with behavior or discipline? Has that gone down over the years, or is there
It'd be
not
great
really?
to see
I
results.
don't know that it's been going on long enough. I think that the conversations of the kids that I've had, so I've had some sixth graders now in eighth grade, so I've had them all 3 years. I know with those kids, the dialogue that we have, one of the girls today, in fact, she said, I was going to break up with my boyfriend on text last night. And this is an eighth grader who I've had since sixth grade. She goes, but I paused and I thought about it. And she's like, and I wasn't acting impulsively. She goes, I was thinking about class. And so those sorts of things, I do think that, wherever it registers in their mind, I hope it is, creating conversation, at least within themselves. And I tell them, you may pick this up 20 years later. You may not buy into this right now. This might be like, oh, I gotta lie down and, I have to be quiet and be still. And that's really uncomfortable for some kids and adults. So I will be eager to see as we go forward. But
And it's
again,
not
it's just
for
the third
everybody.
year. It's not for everybody. My kids personally, I have a daughter graduating this year and 2 juniors. One's a stepdaughter. And I don't think any of them would enjoy my class. Like they really wouldn't. But and so I understand that.
Right.
But if I can give it to you as an option, and that's really the goal, is to try to provide them with a bunch of different things. So this works for me, this doesn't, So, any other questions?
I like it's
Thank you so
optional.
much for letting us share tonight. Appreciate it.
So
Pardon me?
Are the kids Down syndrome?
Yes, ma'am, we do, yes, we
Are the
have
majority of your kids Down syndrome?
the
Okay.
majority of my kids.
That are.
Excuse me, ma'am, this is a meeting, but perhaps you can connect up afterwards.
Yep.
Thank you.
Afterwards, that sounds good for you.
So, thank you, we appreciate your time, and I just want to say that as a principal, get a lot of phone calls from parents that request these classes for their kids, so it's something that I'm very proud of, and it's something I'm very proud of the employees at North Forsyth Middle School. Thank you very much.